All right, looks like we're going to get started now. Thank you for your patience. We are live. Okay, so good evening, everybody. Thank you for popping on and listening to our second RAB meeting of 2022. We will be going over the administrative plan today. I just wanted to start by thanking all of the residents and staff for joining us. I do want to start with a quick introduction of the Fresno Housing staff that will be presenting in this meeting. My name is Lyrica Yegum, and I am Fresno Housing Senior Policy Analyst. I will be presenting a brief summary on the annual plan, and then we also have Aurora Ibarra, who will be presenting the changes on the administrative plan, which is specific to the Housing Choice Voucher Program. We also have an ASL and Spanish interpreter available and present. Before we jump into the presentation, I do want to note that this meeting is being recorded and streaming on our Facebook Live. I also want to note and emphasize that this meeting is strictly to discuss the changes in the 2023 administrative plan that is being displayed for public comment on our website. I provided the link of the website to the meeting invite for the RAB members. So if you are on as a RAB member, please check that email. That will give all of the summary of changes and all the good stuff that you'll need for this meeting. I do want to also note that please don't discuss any personal issues on this meeting. We're here to discuss the administrative plan. We don't want to discuss the wait list or, voucher problems, landlords, anything like that. Again, because we are streaming live on Facebook. And we also, want to be mindful of our audience. So again, please do not share personal issues. So Fresno Housing staff will first present the potential changes, and then we will notify you of when you can start talking and asking questions and comments. Please remain patient as we get through the presentation first. Please use your raise your hand feature if you have questions or comments. We will then call on you and unmute your mic to speak. This will take place after we present the information. We may not be able to answer all questions during this meeting, but if we don't answer them, we will get back to you, and we will have your questions on an FAQ document on our website, and we'll share that link with you guys at the end of this presentation. I do want to thank again those who are participating on the RAB advisory board this meeting specifically, and we also have a lot of participation every single year for this board. And so, we do want to let you guys know that participation is an important factor for these potential changes. And, we do take your guys' opinions and comments into consideration when making changes to our housing programs. So again, we just thank you for your time and, your effort and your questions and your comments. So I will start by sharing my screen. I'm going to share the presentation right now, so just bear with me. Okay, so let me minimize a couple things. 1 second. Okay, so again, today we are presenting the changes on the administrative plan. So we will start, 1 second. We will start out with a little bit of background of what the agency plan has, in mind and what we want to basically address in our changes. We'll go over the timeline briefly, and in that timeline, we also will be presenting the dates of the public comment period, so you guys are aware of when you can make comments. We'll also be going over the proposed changes to the administrative plan. I do want to note that you will see headings in your summary of changes that are in yellow, green, and blue. Yellow text represents significant proposed changes, defined as those that impact the eligibility and admissions policies as delineated by HUD. The green text will represent HUD regulations and/or regulatory changes mandated by the Housing Opportunities through Modernization Act of 2016. The blue text that you'll see represents additional changes suggested by staff and they're discretionary, or I'm sorry, but included in the drafted plan documents. But they're discretionary at the local level, permitted by HUD, and can be adopted by the boards. But I'll go over some background information first, the timeline, and then I will hand it over to Aurora to present the changes on the actual plan. So just to get into the background, what is the agency plan exactly, right? The agency plan basically informs HUD and the public of our policies, operations, funding, asset management, and program activities. The agency plan is comprised of the annual plan, the administrative plan, and the ACOP. So the annual plan addresses updates on any progress on developments, amendments, or significant changes to the administrative plan or the ACOP. The administrative plan is specific to the HCB program. And then we have the admissions and continued occupancy policy, which is referred to as ACOP, which is specific to the policies governing the administration of the public housing program. So here is the timeline, and you can see that July 29th and September 12th is bolded. That is the start and end date of the public comment period. So that is the time where if you feel you need to make a comment or question about any of the plans that we have on display on our website, you can, but by July 29th through September 12th. So today is August 10th. We are on our second RAB meeting. So, you have a few more weeks to make any comments, suggestions, questions, and we'll get into the details later in the presentation on how you can make those comments and who you can address them to. And then October 17th, we will finalize those plans and submit to HUD. So just to get it into a little bit more detail of the annual plan, I do want to note, this presentation is about the admin plan, not the annual plan, but I did want to give a small little background on it. So the annual plan provides a summary of the significant changes that you will see in the admin plan and the ACOP that was addressed yesterday. And the details are provided in the plans themselves, which we will review in a moment. But the annual plan also provides information on activities that are not included either in the admin plan or the ACOP, but most related to development. In this document, we list potential development projects that the agency may want to undertake, updates to the current projects in the pipeline, or ones that may be in pre-development. This plan only only lists existing and potential projects that the agency may eventually undertake. So technically they're placeholders. So staff presents these in broad terms, very vague, to provide the agency with some flexibility. In addition, similar placeholders are used for dates of funding applications. Staff usually puts the soonest date possible, even though there may not be an application, again, just to provide some flexibility for the agency. All development projects eventually require board approval. So we'll present them at some point to the board if we do go through with them. Other activities that are included in the annual plan that may be of interest to residents are information on the home ownership program, progress report on mission and goals as described in the 5-year plan that we have on our website, and then also some finance and special projects. So with that, I will hand it over to Aurora, and she will speak on the changes to the administrative plan this year.
Hey, good evening, everyone. Can we go ahead and progress to the next screen? Thank you. Again, my name is Aurora Ibarra. I'm the Assistant Director of the Housing Choice Department. And as Lyric mentioned, I'll be presenting the proposed changes to the administrative plan tonight. As a reminder, the items here that I'm going to cover are the significant changes in yellow. Those are recommended changes that impact policies and those specific to our admissions and eligibility. Section 2.2, so basically in chapter 2, under opening and closing of the interest list, we're proposing to go back to administering a single interest a waiting list. We currently administer a separate list for the city housing choice voucher program and the county housing choice voucher program. However, applicants can lease up any in any city within the jurisdiction of Fresno County. So staff are proposing to change for the purpose of reducing confusion amongst applicants who are applying for housing choice voucher assistance, who don't always understand that they have to check like both boxes when applying for rental assistance. Then applicants tend to believe that if they select county, they must lease in a county area and vice versa with the city program. But basically moving to a single list will also allow staff to focus on issuing vouchers more expeditiously rather than having to perform like administrative tasks associated with cleaning up the list with low response rates. So it's just basically a way for us to get through the list quicker and issue vouchers to those in our community. In chapter 2, also under public notices, we're adding policy applicable to public notices for site-based and referral-based, project-based vouchers. But currently, there's no language in the plan that addresses these types of public notices, mostly because during COVID, we just had, an opening for our RAB property. So this gives us the opportunity to update the plan for public noticing those types of properties. The public notice will clearly explain the criteria and referral process for those programs. In chapter 3 for local preferences, we also extended the elderly or disabled person preference to include any family member who is a disabled person and meets the HUD definition as already specified in the preference category. So the current policy applies only to households where the head of household, spouse, or co-head is elderly or disabled. So we're very pleased to announce that we're extending that to any family member. We also added a preference applicable to, sorry, I've got some chats popping up on my screen. We also extended a new preference applicable to applicant families with minor children who meet HUD and Fresno Housing's definition of a family member. Minor children of a live-in aid don't qualify the family for the preference, and minor foster children of an authorized adult member of the applicant household also do not qualify the family for this preference. Very similar to our just ongoing occupancy policy. And then in chapter 11, we added what's called a hold harmless clause that is designed to protect families whose payment standards were increased in accordance with a HUD waiver, which expires at the end of this year. So without this clause, staff would have to reduce these families' subsidy effective January of 2023 if the fair market rents don't support those payment standards adopted with use of the waiver. So in essence, this policy will allow Fresno Housing to continue using the existing higher payment standard for the family subsidy calculation for as long as the family continues to receive the voucher assistance in that unit. Next slide, please. Okay, so significant changes continued. Okay, so in chapter 26, that speaks to our Veterans Affairs Supportive Housing, or otherwise known as our VASH program. We updated our policy to allow our VASH applicants to qualify for housing under the 80% area median income limits. So unlike the Housing Choice Voucher program, income targeting requirements do not apply for HUD VASH families, so that PHAs can effectively serve eligible homeless veterans who may be at they got a variety different levels of income, right? So applying the 80% area median income limits will further expand the program to serve veteran families. And then under chapter 23, we're adding new, we're adding a new chapter that will cover HUD regulations and policies related to project-based voucher RAD conversions. It's an entire chapter, very extensive, that will cover our policies for that program. We do not have any HUD mandated changes this year. So we'll go ahead and move on to the next screen. Okay, so moving on to the proposed changes that are not considered significant by definition. The proposed changes you'll see in blue are clarifications to existing policies or changes recommended by staff that don't impact admissions and eligibility, but are still noted in our administrative plan. We've categorized these proposed changes as like clarifications, changes to language, and streamlining or improving our customer service. So in chapter 2, for purging the waiting list, we added clarifying language that Fresno Housing may also purge an interest list to ensure it maintains a viable list that results in the high response rates from applicants who remain interested in applying for rental assistance. So often, you know, those lists may become stale. So we want to be sure that we are, you know, selecting individuals who are still interested in applying for assistance. We also added a method for applicants who successfully lease up. You know, we've issued them, we've drawn them, they successfully leased up. We're giving them the option to remove their pre-application from another HCV interest list that they applied for, right? So adding this policy allows for a cleaner interest list, which in turn allows Fresno Housing to select interested applicants who are not receiving assistance and allows for higher response rates. It often confuses individuals who are already housed as well as to why we're reaching out to them when they're already housed. In chapter 3, we added detailed information on like what happens to an applicant's pre-application when they do not qualify for a preference that they checked a box on, right? So that will be more clarifying language on what happens to those individuals. And in chapter 4, we added the time frame that a person has to add a new live-in aid and when replacing a current live-in aid. So the time frame is already procedurally established, like it's something that we already practice, but it wasn't in the plan. So we, again, all of these sections are just to add clarifying language to what we already practice. Under chapter 5, with the exceptions to subsidy standards, we added a bullet to include a section for reasonable accommodation requests for larger voucher sizes when a household member requires a separate area as a reasonable accommodation. So again, we are already applying this procedurally. However, it is now added to the plan. One thing that we did change this year that I quickly wanted to reference is that we changed our voucher issuance policy from issuing 2 heartbeats per room, where we now issue 1 bedroom to the head of household, and if applicable, if there's a spouse or a co-head, right, they would get 1 bedroom, and then 2 persons thereafter are issued their own bedroom. We're also changing the number of days a household has to inform Fresno Housing when they are adding additional family members from 10 business days to 30 business days. And in chapter 7 and 12, we're changing the requirement for families to return verifications from 10 calendar days to furnish requested documents to 10 business days, where Fresno Housing is making the second request for documents. The first request for documents remains the same at 10 calendar days, so there's no change there. In chapter 15, the time frame for which a family must request an informal hearing is now clarified to be 10 business days from the date the letter is mailed. Again, we're already procedurally applying this. However, it is now added for clarification to the plan. And in chapter 22, every year we update the plan to include our project-based voucher developments that are in the pipeline. As Lyric has specified in her introduction, those developments are also included in our annual plan. But these are specific to project-based vouchers that are in the administrative plan. And then also in chapter 22, we added that Fresno Housing will publish its public notice of selection of PBV proposals for 2 consecutive days, or at least 1 day per week for at least 2 consecutive weeks. We do want to just, for more information on our agency plans and our public comment period, visit our this website, and you'll see all of our drafts and summaries there, which I know Lyric is going to go ahead and wrap up if there aren't any questions, or I guess I can take questions at this time.
I was actually going to show them how to navigate on the website to find the drafts, and then we can jump into questions if you guys have any. So if you guys can at some point visit this webpage, this is where all of our drafts are. I'll click on this, and I just want to kind of show you guys how to go about it. Let me stop sharing my screen really quick. 1 second. Okay, let me share my screen again so I can show the web page. Give me a few seconds. Okay, so you guys should be seeing the Fresno Housing draft page. The plans and policies are all on here, but you will see the 2023 PHA plan drafts and public comment section right here. So if you click on more, it'll go into further detail on how you guys can go ahead and submit any comments or questions. So we can take that into consideration when finalizing these plans. Your best bet, if you are on Facebook Live and you have any questions or comments at this time, the best way to get to us is going to be emailing our agency plans at fresnohousing.org. I know that is in the chat on Facebook Live, but please keep that in mind if you guys have any suggestions for us. You can also try the phone number that is on the website as well. That will directly go to me, and you can ask me any questions or suggest anything. If I don't know the answer at the time, I'll run it by the department and we'll get back to you. We will also post an FAQ on our website that you guys will see displayed right underneath the drafts. We do have a board meeting where they will approve of the plans in September. The board meeting before they approve, though, we are doing a public hearing. So if you guys would like to come to the board meeting and, comment or question any of these plans, we will be holding that on August 23rd at 5:00 p.m. Again, details are on this webpage. But other than that, the plans are displayed here. You just click on them and they'll open right up for you guys. And we also include the summaries on here as well. So if you don't, have the time to rummage through the full plan, we have the summaries displayed. So that's all I have for you guys. I can stop sharing my screen and then we can jump into questions. If you have questions or comments, please raise your hand. If you guys are on the phone, please press *9 so we know if you're raising your hand. And again, Facebook Live, we apologize. We won't be able to hear you at this moment, but please email the agency plans at fresnohousing.org. We do have a question from an anonymous attendee. I believe there was a program through Fresno Housing Authority called the Home Ownership Program, but it ended around 2014. Is there any plans to restart this program? So I'm not the expert at the Home Ownership Program, but if there's more details that I'm missing right now, we will be able to share that in the document that we'll put on the website. And I'll answer that question more thoroughly. But I am under the impression that we are restarting that program. We are in the works of converting that program to something called Section 32. I believe we're still going through the motions of getting all of that approved by HUD. So I believe sometime next year, that should be in the works. But again, I will give you the final and definite answer with details on the FAQ that we do have on our website. Do we have any other questions or comments? Please use the raise your hand feature if you do. If you're over the phone, press star 9. Okay, it looks like we're not getting anything else in. I don't think I'm seeing anything else unless I'm missing something. I can wrap it up and we can conclude here if nobody else has anything. Aurora, do you want to add anything before we conclude? You're on mute.
No, I don't have anything to add.
Awesome. Okay. Well, with that, we are concluding our second RAB meeting of 2022. I do want to note that we have one more on September 7th. We will be streaming that again. But I do just want to thank everybody, staff, residents, those who are on hearing through Facebook Live. We appreciate you guys. We appreciate any type of suggestions, comments, questions. Again, visit our webpage to get a little bit more details on that. But again, we thank you guys and hope you have a great evening. Good night.